He had everything money could buy. Charles Whitmore sat in his corner office, 50 floors above the city, in a suit that cost more than most people's rent. His walls were lined with awards, photos with politicians and celebrities, even a plaque naming him Businessman of the Year. The glass windows stretched across the entire skyline, the city lights sparkling below him like diamonds scattered on velvet. But behind that expensive desk sat a man who looked empty. His assistant had gone home hours ago. His phone buzzed with unanswered texts from people who only wanted deals, favors, or money. Charles leaned back in his leather chair, staring at his reflection in the glass. The truth was, no matter how high he climbed, he always felt alone at the top. He had money, he had power, but what he didn't have was a story anyone would remember when he was gone. And Charles knew it. That night, he muttered to himself, "Is this it? Is this all life is supposed to be?" His voice cracked a little, though no one was there to hear it. But what Charles didn't know was that his life was about to change in a way he never saw coming. Not through another $1 million deal. Not through another headline in the paper. But through something far more powerful, something that money could never buy. And it all began the night his car broke down. What happened in that one broken down moment would set him on a path he could never have imagined. It was late. Charles had left another business dinner where he barely touched his food, and now his sleek black luxury car sat stranded on a dimly lit street, the engine refusing to start. He slammed his fist on the steering wheel. Unbelievable. Of all nights. The street was quiet, except for the sound of footsteps on the sidewalk. A young woman, backpack over her shoulder, diner uniform still on, was walking home. Sophie. She was in her mid-20s, tired from her shift, her hair pulled back in a loose ponytail. She noticed the man in the suit struggling with his phone, cursing under his breath. She could have kept walking. Most people would have. After all, he looked like someone who didn't need anyone's help. But instead, she stopped. "Hey, you okay?" she asked softly. Charles looked up, almost surprised. "My car died." Of course, roadside service is taking forever. Without hesitation, Sophie pulled a water bottle from her bag. "You look stressed. Here, take this. It's hot out tonight." Charles blinked. This wasn't how people usually treated him. They either feared him, envied him, or wanted something from him. But this girl? She didn't even know who he was. She just cared. When he realized his phone battery was low, Sophie offered, "You can use mine if you need to call someone." And when she noticed him sighing heavily, she simply sat down on the curb beside him. "Don't worry. You won't have to wait alone." That silence, the kind where no one was rushing to impress or ask for something, felt strange to Charles. Strange, but comforting. And as the tow truck finally pulled in, Charles turned to her and asked, "Why would you stop? You don't even know me." She smiled gently. "Because, sometimes, people just need a little kindness." Her words stayed with him long after she disappeared into the night. But Charles wasn't the kind of man to let go of something that shook him that deeply. He couldn't stop thinking about Sophie. And soon he would find her again. A few days later, Charles did something he hadn't done in years. He went looking for someone, not for business, but for meaning. He had kept the small diner's name printed on Sophie's uniform in his memory, and one morning he walked inside. The smell of fresh coffee and pancakes filled the air. The place was small, nothing like the five-star restaurants he was used to, but it felt alive. Families eating together, workers grabbing breakfast before long shifts, kids laughing in booths. And there she was, Sophie, moving quickly between tables with a smile that never faded, no matter how tired she looked. Charles sat quietly, just watching. And what he saw that morning would shake him even more than their first meeting. He watched her pay for a homeless man's coffee when he came up short. He saw her walk an elderly woman across the street during her break. He overheard her encourage a shy child who had dropped his ice cream, saying, "Hey, it's okay. We'll get you another one. Accidents happen." Charles realized that while he had been counting profits, Sophie had been counting moments. While he built skyscrapers, she built people. And though she had so little, she gave endlessly. It was then Charles understood, Sophie was rich in a way he had never been. But how could he, a man with more money than he knew what to do with, ever repay a woman who gave without expecting anything in return? That question would soon lead him to make choices that changed not just his life, but hers too. Charles began coming back. Not as a businessman, not as a boss, but as a man searching for something real. At first, it was little things. He'd tip Sophie generously, though she never treated him differently because of it. One day, he quietly paid for repairs the diner desperately needed, never signing his name, only making sure the bill was covered. Another day, he anonymously sent a check to her college bursar's office, covering part of her tuition. But here's what surprised him. None of it changed Sophie. She didn't fawn over him. She didn't bow to his wealth. She still asked him how he was doing, listened when he spoke, and treated him like anyone else who walked through those doors. For the first time in his life, Charles wasn't giving for recognition. He was giving because it felt good. Because kindness felt more fulfilling than any business deal ever had. He even found himself smiling, real smiles, not the practiced ones for cameras. One evening, as he watched Sophie stay late to clean up after a long shift, he thought, she has nothing, yet she gives everything. I have everything, yet I've given nothing that mattered. And in that moment, Charles began to change. But sometimes, the deepest changes come not when we act, but when we hear the right words at the right time. And soon, Charles would overhear something that would break him open completely. It was late. The diner was closing. Charles lingered at the counter, sipping coffee, when Sophie sat with her best friend in the corner booth. She didn't notice he was still there. Her friend sighed. "You do so much for people, Sophie. Don't you ever feel like it's wasted? Like no one even sees it?" Sophie laughed softly, shaking her head. "I don't think kindness is ever wasted. Even if the world doesn't notice, someone's life changes because of it. And honestly, that's enough for me." Those words hit Charles like a freight train. Kindness is never wasted. His chest tightened. For years, he had lived for the spotlight, for achievements that newspapers would print, for legacies written in contracts and concrete. But sitting there, he realized none of it mattered if no one's life was better because he existed. And for the first time in decades, Charles felt tears fall down his face. But they weren't tears of loss. They were tears of discovery. Tears of finally understanding what had been missing all along. From that night on, Charles knew he couldn't go back to the man he used to be. But the question was, how would he use his wealth, his power, his influence, now that he finally understood the truth? Charles woke up the next morning with a clarity he had never known. No more chasing skyscrapers. No more empty titles. This time, he would build something that actually mattered. He poured millions, not into another business tower, but into a community center right in the neighborhood where his car had once broken down. He funded scholarships for kids who couldn't afford college. He opened food programs for families struggling to get by. He even built art and music classes, believing every child deserved a chance to dream. And when the ribbon was cut on opening day, Sophie was right there, not as a recipient, but as his partner. Charles didn't just want her kindness to inspire him. He wanted it to inspire the world. The community came alive in ways he never imagined. Kids had a safe place to learn. Parents had support when times got hard. And Charles, for the first time, felt like he truly belonged, not because of wealth, but because of kindness. He had finally discovered that legacy isn't built with money. It's built with people. But his story wasn't finished yet. Because years later, something happened that would prove once and for all that kindness writes the kind of story money never could. Years passed. The community center became a heartbeat of the neighborhood. Generations of kids grew up there, learning, laughing, chasing dreams they never thought possible. And one day, as Charles walked through the halls with Sophie by his side, he noticed something on the wall. The children had painted a mural. It showed him and Sophie surrounded by countless faces, families, kids, neighbors, everyone their kindness had touched. Charles stood there silently, eyes filling with tears. He had built towers that touched the sky. But this was the first time he had built something that touched lives. A warm smile spread across his face. Not the hollow, corporate smile he once wore, but a genuine one, deep, grateful, alive. Money can build walls. But kindness Kindness writes a story money never could. And in that moment, Charles finally understood, true wealth isn't measured in dollars. It's measured in the lives we touch. That was the story Charles left behind. Not one written in ledgers or contracts, but one written in kindness. Moral of this story: true wealth isn't about how much you have, it's about how much you give. And when you lead with kindness, you create a legacy that no amount of money can buy. This story reminds us that money can fade, but kindness leaves a mark that lasts forever. So if you were inspired, make sure to share this video with someone who needs to hear it today. And remember, what you give from the heart is worth more than anything money can buy. Don't just chase success, choose kindness. And remember, we're not just telling stories. We're changing lives.